Hi there, this is a piece of audio content that is only available in full over at patreon.com/ElwoodCityLimits. We wanted to give you a little bit of a preview to show you what you might be missing out on. You can join us for as little as $1 under the Pay What You Want model at patreon.com/ElwoodCityLimits and get access to over dozens of hours of content, including every episode of For the Kids, a PBS Kids podcast. We appreciate you listening, whether you're a patron or whether you're listening on the free feed. You're under no obligation to join, and thank you very much for checking out this preview. But if you'd like to know what these episodes and extra content sounds like, here's a little bit of a sneak peek. Now, one thing that I'm sure that a lot of our patrons who were interested in hearing about Wimzie's house and wanted to hear us talk about is probably the cast. So, mentioned before, this is a CNR production. This is the same production house that was really big in Canada in the 90s into the 2000s. And so there was a lot of crossover from CNR Productions in terms of who was making the show and who was cast on the show. So I think the natural way to start here is with Sonia Ball as Wimzie. And if that name sounds familiar, it's the voice of Mom Reed.
And this is just, yeah, like you said, the Arthur alumni start here, but they certainly don't stop.
Well, and especially if you're Canadian and you've seen a lot of the shows that I'm going to talk about, it's likely that you've heard these voices before. So Sonia Ball, of course, has a long career of both acting and voice acting in Canadian and American productions. So she's Mom Reed and Arthur. She did voices for Stickin' Around and Mona the Vampire and lots more than that. And we all love her as Mom Reed. As Wimzie's mom, Graziella, that is Jennifer Seguin, who also did voices for Mona the Vampire. She is also the voice of Caillou's mom on the original Caillou cartoon series, and she's the voice of Muffy's mom, Mrs. Crosswire.
This woman is Patience of the Buddha.
And that's a really good point. And it's funny, when I think of those two characters in my mind next to each other, their voices do sound really similar. It's just that Mrs. Crosswire doesn't talk all that much. She's not around very much, so you don't get to hear her all that much. Speaking of Arthur moms, Liz McRae is the voice of Bo, who is Wimzie's little brother, her little baby brother. That's the voice of Binky's mom. It's a little bit harder to tell because she's doing the baby voice, but yeah, that's totally Binky's mom. We also have Jane Woods, who plays Wimzie's grandma, Yaya, and she is the voice of Francine's mom, who I'm not sure I knew before looking this up. Francine's mom is named Laverne. I don't know if they've ever said her first name on the show, and if they have, I'm not certain we've gotten to it before.
It also says here that Yaya is 150 years old, which I missed that little tidbit of lore, but did not know that the Wimzie characters don't live natural lifespans.
Well, they're like, they're dragons, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know anything about. Listen, it's been a long time since elementary school and the book fair and me reading Dragontology. I don't know the average lifespan of a dragon.
But I think that's common knowledge about dragons is that they're long-lived, right?
Listen, I've never seen a dragon, Will. I don't know, and I'm not studious when it comes to dragons. I don't know.
So I will, the Wikipedia itself says that Wimzie is a dragon and bird hybrid, and other characters are dragons. So we're dealing with dragons here, and so Wimzie's mom is a bird, and her father is a dragon. So she's some kind of dragon-bird hybrid. So she doesn't have the long snout that her father has, but she has almost a little bit of a beak kind of thing going on there.
Anyway. Yeah, I wonder if this is like an Aragorn kind of situation where, Wimzie's dad's going to be mourning the loss of Wimzie's mom for being a bird, because he'll outlive her or something like that.
Oh, I never thought about that. Forced to stay by her graveside for the ages. Don't like that. Speaking of her father, Jonas is the character's name. He's played by a Canadian actor named Thor Bishoprick. He's been active since the 1970s, largely in voiceover. A lot of smaller voiceover roles. I couldn't find any main cast things that I recognize, but his voice sounded familiar, and I'm sure I've heard it before. And we're not done with the Arthur actors yet. In the role of Lulu. Oh, and excuse me, I messed that up. Jonas is the friend character with the glasses. So my apologies. I'll go back here. Russo is the name of Wimzie's dad, played by Tyrone Benskin. Now, Tyrone Benskin, a Canadian actor, but he also went on to be an MP in a Montreal riding, a member of parliament. He literally worked for the government for several years.
Well, what party? Do we know?
So I know the riding, but I don't think it's... I mean, I didn't really do a whole lot of like further looking into this. So he was in the Jean Lebert riding, and he... Let me see here. Oh, sweet. He was NDP.
Okay, there you go.
Good. I mean, no political party in Canada is great, but NDP is kind of one of the least worst. Okay, so sorry about the confusion there. That's Thor Bishopric as Jonas, who is the friend, Tyrone Benskin as Russo, the dad. We didn't see much of Wimzie's other friend in the episode that we watched. Her name is Lulu, but she is voiced by Holly Gauthier-Frankel, who has been on For the Kids before, and definitely Arthur. She's best known as the voice of Fern. She was also a voice on Mona the Vampire, and for anybody who watched What's with Andy, she was Terry on that show. I know that What's with Andy has a little bit of a fandom, so I wanted to make sure to put that in there. And finally, I'd say... I feel like I recognized Mom Reed's voice pretty quickly, but immediately, as soon as the breath left his mouth, you know that Horace is voiced by Bruce Dinsmore, who, of course, as we've mentioned before, is the voice of Binky and Dad Reed, and it's just the Binky voice. And I remember watching this as a kid and being like, that character sounds exactly like Binky Barnes. That's weird.
In fact, like I feel like the first time he speaks, he's almost like a little bit off screen, like he's not centered in the shot. And I'm like, is Binky here? Wait, where's Binky? The character also kind of looks a little bit like Binky too, like with the two big bottom teeth and the kind of big cheeks, like in the same way that I feel like Binky is kind of modeled after like a bulldog. This character is bulldog-esque as well.
Yeah, and he's far more gentle than Binky usually is. But you're right, they do have a bit of an oafish quality to them, the both of them. So that's good looking out for that one. That's really all the history there is to say about Wimzie's house, at least from what I could find. So we're going to talk here. I just decided to go with the first episode, which aired September 1st, 1997 on PBS Kids. The original debut airing in French was March 4th, 1995. So America got it 2 years later. It's called The Cookie Crisis. And speaking of recognizing people's voices right away, the theme song is performed by Sonia Ball, who is singing as both the unseen singer and as Wimzie herself. So when Sonia Ball is singing in her normal singing voice, like I just hear Jane Reed immediately.
True. There's not much to say really about the theme song besides that funky bass. It's funny that you were talking about how you can't fake the funk. It's funky bass line. The bass is way up in the mix. It is kind of the thing that jumps out and grabs you about the song.
Okay, that's going to do it for now. But we will see you next time on Elwood City Limits or at patreon.com/ElwoodCityLimits if you decide to join us. Thank you very much and have a great week.